Well, all of a sudden, everyone's talking about the Great Reset. The Great Reset's all the rage. It's finally in the news. And because we identify reset with a computer upgrade, it's sold to us as something good. If a reset is good, a great reset must be great, right? Well, before we get to that, you have to understand where the phrase Great Reset comes from and what it means exactly. It comes from the founder and CEO of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab. Professor Schwab and his fellow oligarchs have been trying to gain some traction with this Great Reset for years, without a lot of luck. And because bots and algorithms are used to censor people, let me speak in code. What happened in the area of China that rhymes with Schmuhan that led to the schlockdown and the mandated facial accessories? This suddenly became useful for the Great Reset salesman. In fact, they put out a short propaganda video on the World Economic Forum website that predicts a world where, quote, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy and you'll rent everything that you need. Let's see here, owning nothing. It's another way of saying that private property is dead. And how will that make me feel happy? I guess we'll have to trust Professor Schwab and his friends. I mean, these people are professors and doctors and they have PhDs and stuff. They obviously have our best interests at heart. But very few people were buying into the Great Reset idea until the schlockdown happened in 2020. The schlamdemic provided the perfect crisis to go full steam ahead with the Great Reset. As a matter of fact, already in early July this year, Klaus Schwab wrote a 300-page book called COVID-19, The Great Reset. Color me skeptical, but how could a book of that scope be coughed up in 4 or 5 months? I guess Herr Professor Schwab is really good at time management because he has another tome rolling out in January called Stakeholder Capitalism. He somehow made the cover of Time magazine with an excerpt from that book already in early October this year. That issue of Time magazine reads like a who's who of oligarchs, from Harry and Meghan to the Sompo Group in Japan, to the CEO of Citigroup, to the International Monetary Fund chief. Even Doug McMillon, the CEO of Walmart, picked up his Great Reset pom-poms. The ground for all this was softened in a June 2020 essay on the WEF website, where we learn the 3 main components to the Great Reset. Component number 1, and I quote, steer the market toward fairer outcomes, unquote. Fairer outcomes. That sounds like the opposite of a meritocracy where competition is the driver and where good quality service and hard work prevails and is rewarded. Any economy based on fairer outcomes is nothing other than socialism, which is both a synonym for and a gateway drug to world communism. Great Reset component number 2, quote, ensure that investments advance shared goals such as equality and sustainability, unquote. Well, right off the bat, sustainability is a wizard word. It has almost no meaning apart from the subjective meaning that people who use it put on it. But if our goal from an investment point of view is equality, then we're back to square one. Equality does not exist in economics, but it is the dream of socialists. The third and final priority of the Great Reset agenda is to harness the innovations of the Fourth Industrial Revolution to support the public good, especially by addressing health and social challenges, unquote. Yes, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, another phrase coined by Herr Professor Schwab. In 2016, he wrote, quote, the first industrial revolution used water and steam power to mechanize production. The second used electric power to create mass production. The third used electronics and information technology to automate production. Now a fourth industrial revolution is building on the third, the digital revolution that has been occurring since the middle of the last century. It is characterized by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres, unquote. Do you notice the key word? Fusion. The Fourth Industrial Revolution is the historically realized dream of transhumanism, the literal fusion of artificial intelligence and the digital world with the human person in his body. This is no longer science fiction, folks, although science fiction does predict often in an artistic way what's coming around the corner. Think of the 1963 novel A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, or the 1968 novel by Arthur C. Clarke, which was made famous by the Stanley Kubrick movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, featuring the computer HAL 9000, who took offense at being found out having made a mistake. We're at the beginning of transhumanism, which is another man-made desire to become other than a creature made in God's image and likeness. The human person is slowly being redefined as a means to someone else's end, and not a sovereign individual with inherent rights as an end in himself. While there are good potential uses for curing certain diseases, the transhumanist movement is ultimately about population control and eugenics. It's essentially atheistic, and it works with the utilitarian presupposition that pain is bad and pleasure is good. So, what's the Great Reset? It's the redefinition of man. And there's only one system of government that demands that man be redefined as a cog in a machine, as a means to someone else's end, and that is communism. I'll leave it to historians and other researchers to solve the mystery of just how planned this schlamdemic was. But what's hiding in plain sight and is not deniable is that it is a crisis that the oligarchs do not want to go to waste. The same group that created the crisis and profits from the crisis and propagandizes on behalf of the crisis is made up of the same people who are planning the Great Reset as they create the vaccine that will take away all our problems. And while they do that, they add a spoonful of communism to make the medicine go down. It's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. It's the people who used a minor named Greta Thunberg to advance a globalist agenda. It's the Rockefeller Foundation and every billionaire who splashes the word philanthropist on his business card. It's Anthony Fauci and Big Pharma. It's Jack ZZ Top Video Dorsey and Big Tech. It's a non-medical doctor, Tedros Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization. It's puppet master George Soros. It's the zero population zealots like Jeffrey Sachs and his communist China enabling friend Archbishop Marcelo Sanchez Sorondo. It's Freemasonry. It's the regulars who fly in their private jets and entourages to the Bilderberg meetings and the World Economic Forum meetings in Davos. It's the Council on Foreign Relations. These are the stakeholders Schwab is talking about in his book title. The stakeholders are the elites who are exploiting the schlamdemic and coming to the rescue with solutions for our good. By the way, the stakeholders also include Joe Biden and the Democrat oligarchs. And speaking of Joe Biden, finally putting his stamp of approval on the Great Reset is Pope Francis with his encyclical Fratelli Tutti, Brothers All, perfectly timed. If you don't believe me, read the link in the description below from the World Economic Forum website. They can barely contain their glee because Pope Francis, quote, deftly excommunicated about a half a century's worth of economic ideology, unquote. Well, that's a fancy way of saying that he contradicts previous Catholic teaching on the natural right to private property, starting with Rerum Novarum by Pope Leo XIII in 1891, up until the Great Treatment of Catholic Economic Principles by St. John Paul II. The Great Reset represents a very old temptation to make paradise on earth. It's a form of technological and economic messianism. In the words of the prophet Johnny Cash, they want the kingdom of God, but not God in it. Subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, don't miss a thing. My podcast drops every Tuesday. The membership site, Coffin Nation, might be a match for you if you care about restoring the culture and you don't like being lied to on a massive scale. It'd be great to have you. Be a saint. What else is there?